Bum 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 bum.
Part 4. How different types of energy impact the environment. The hospitality industry uses enormous amounts of energy in the form of electricity and fuels. Energy can come from many sources. Some of these are renewable, and some are not. They include fossil fuels, nuclear energy, solar energy, wind power, tidal power, hydroelectric, wave power, geothermal, and biofuels. Let's take a closer look. Of all the energy used in the world, fossil fuels are the most widely used. They provide 88% of all the energy used. This can be broken down as follows: coal 28%, oil 40%, natural gas 20%, nuclear power contributes 11%, and all others combined produce 1%. Fossil fuels create energy by being burned and heating water to make steam. This steam then turns turbines, which turn generators, which create electricity. All energy sources have their advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of fossil fuels are that very large amounts of electricity can be generated in one place, using coal fairly cheaply. It's fairly easy to transport oil and gas to the power stations. Gas-fired power stations are very efficient and actually create little pollution. A fossil-fueled power station can be built almost anywhere, as long as you can get large quantities of fuel to it. Basically, the main disadvantage of fossil fuels is pollution. Burning any fossil fuel produces carbon dioxide, which contributes to the greenhouse effect that's warming the Earth. Burning coal produces more carbon dioxide than burning oil or gas. It also produces sulfur dioxide, a gas that contributes to acid rain. Coal mining can be difficult and dangerous. Strip mining destroys large areas of the landscape. Coal-fired power stations need huge amounts of fuel, which means trainloads of coal almost constantly. In order to cope with the changing demands for power, the station needs reserves, and that means covering large areas of countryside next to the power station with piles of coal. And fossil fuels are non-renewable, which means they will run out eventually. Nuclear power is generated using uranium, which is a metal mined in various parts of the world. Uranium atoms are split using nuclear fission. This generates a great deal of heat, and the electrical power is generated in much the same way as with fossil fuels, by heating the water into steam, etc. Nuclear power costs about the same as coal, so it's not expensive to make. Nuclear power doesn't produce smoke or carbon dioxide, so it doesn't contribute to the greenhouse effect. It produces huge amounts of energy from small amounts of fuel. Also produces very little waste. Nuclear power is also very reliable. Although not much waste is produced, it is very, very dangerous. It must be sealed up and buried for many thousands of years to allow the radioactivity to die away. For all that time, it must be kept safe from earthquakes, flooding, terrorists, and everything else. This is very difficult. Nuclear power is reliable, but a lot of money has to be spent on safety. If something does go wrong, a nuclear accident can be a major disaster. People are increasingly concerned about this. Nuclear power used to be the fastest growing source of power, but it has slowed down lately. We've used energy from the sun for drying clothes and drying food for thousands of years, but only recently have we been able to use it for generating power. The sun is 150 million kilometers away and amazingly powerful. Just the tiny fraction of the sun's energy that hits the Earth, which is about 1/100th of a millionth of a percent, is enough to meet all our power needs many times over. In fact, every minute, enough energy arrives at the Earth to meet our demands for a whole year. Energy is created when the solar panel converts the energy into electricity, which is sent to the power board. If more energy is collected than is used, the meter runs backward, and the power company pays you for the excess. Solar energy is free. It needs no fuel, and it produces no waste or pollution. In sunny countries, solar power can be used wherever there is no easy way to get electricity to a remote place. Handy for low power uses such as solar-powered garden lights and battery chargers, or for helping your home energy bills. And solar energy is renewable. However, solar power doesn't work at night, and it's very expensive to build solar power stations, although the cost is coming down as technology improves. In the meantime, solar cells cost a great deal compared to the amount of electricity they'll produce in their lifetime. Solar energy can be unreliable unless you're in a very sunny climate. For example, in the United Kingdom, solar power isn't used much for high-power applications, as you need large areas of solar panel to get enough power. Wind power works when wind turns the propellers of a windmill, which turn a generator, which produces the electricity. Wind is free, and wind farms require no fuel. Wind produces no waste or greenhouse gases. The land beneath the windmill can usually still be used for farming. Wind farms can be tourist attractions. Wind farming is a good method of supplying energy to remote areas, and wind power is renewable. But the wind is not always predictable. Some days have no wind. And suitable areas for wind farms are often near the coast where land is expensive. Some people feel that covering the landscape with these towers is unsightly. Windmills can kill birds, because migrating flocks of birds tend to like strong winds and are attracted to windmills. However, this is rare, and we tend not to build wind farms on migratory routes anyway. Windmills can affect television reception if you live nearby. And windmills can be noisy. Wind generators have a reputation for making a constant low swooshing noise day and night. Hydroelectric power comes from water which is stored in reservoirs created by dams. Water flows from the reservoir into a channel called a penstock. The water turns a turbine, which generates electricity, which is sent through power lines. Once the dam is built, the energy created is virtually free. There's no waste or pollution produced. Hydroelectric power is much more reliable than wind, solar, or wave power. Water can be stored above the dam ready to cope with peaks in demand. Hydroelectric power stations can increase to full power very quickly, unlike other power stations. And electricity can be generated constantly. Hydroelectric power is also a renewable energy source. But there are disadvantages to hydroelectric power. The dams are very expensive to build. However, many dams are also used for flood control or irrigation, so the building costs can be shared. Building a large dam will flood a very large area upstream, causing problems for animals that used to live there. Finding a suitable site can be difficult. The impact on residents and the environment might be unacceptable. And water quality and quantity downstream can be affected, and that can have an impact on plant life. At a wave power station, the waves arriving cause the water in the chamber to rise and fall, which means that air is forced in and out of the hole at the top of the chamber. We place a turbine at the top of this hole, which is turned by the air rushing in and out, and the turbine turns a generator. With wave power, the energy is free. There's no fuel needed and no waste produced. It's not expensive to operate and maintain, and it can produce a great deal of energy. Wave power is also a renewable energy source. Wave power does depend on the waves, though. Sometimes you get loads of energy, sometimes almost nothing. So you need a suitable site where the waves are constantly strong. Some designs are noisy, but then again so are waves, so noise isn't unlikely to be a problem. and a wave station must be able to withstand very rough weather. Geothermal means heat from rocks. Hot rocks underground heat water to produce steam. Holes are drilled down to the hot region, then cold water is pumped down to the rocks. Steam comes up, is purified, and is used to drive the turbines, which drive the electric generators. Sometimes there may be natural groundwater in the hot rocks anyways, saving the need to pump water to them. Geothermal energy does not produce any pollution and does not contribute to the greenhouse effect. The power stations do not take up much room, so there's not much impact on the environment. No fuel is needed, and once you've built a geothermal power station, the energy is almost free. It may need little energy to run a pump, but this can be taken from the energy being generated, and geothermal energy is a renewable energy source. The big problem is that there are not many places where you can build a geothermal power station. You need hot rocks of a suitable type, at a depth where we can drill down to them. The type of rock above is also important. It must be of a type that we can easily drill through. Sometimes a geothermal site may run out of steam, perhaps for decades. Hazardous gases and minerals might come up from the underground, and it can be difficult to safely dispose of them. Wood was once our main fuel. We burned it to heat our homes and cook our food. We still burn wood, but we don't use it as much as a major energy source today. However, plants and animals can still provide energy. We call these biofuels. We can burn waste products such as rubbish, animal manure, wood chips, seaweed, corn stalks, and sugarcane for fuel. We can also convert sugar, beetroot, corn, and other high sugar crops into alcohol, which can be burned. We can convert animal fat into fuel oils, and these fuels are called biomass. We can also let the waste decompose, and as it decomposes, methane and other natural gas can be produced, and we call these fuels biogas. It makes sense to use waste materials wherever we can. The methane gas from the waste would otherwise end up in the atmosphere, and methane is a worse greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Biofuels tend to be cheap and provides less demand on fossil fuels. But when we burn biogas, just like burning anything else, it does make a greenhouse gas, just like fossil fuels do. You can find out more about energy sources by going to this website.